We take this, as Gurudev liked to say, it's the transcendental sound vibration form of the Lord. So that means it's concomitant to his own existence. And as Guru Maharaj has expressed elsewhere, evolution means gradual expression of what's already there. So in this world, if you want to say, in different places, it's mentioned in Kalisantarana Upanishad and this place and that place. But our primary concern is with the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the current emphasis on Hare Krishna Mahamantra comes from Mahaprabhu and his divine paraphernalia. Any other question? Just as Guru would say, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Let's use this as an example. That's not written in any book. Guru Maharaj said it comes from Mahaprabhu and his paraphernalia, meaning the Panchatattva. So the where, the when is all superficial. Neti hasana kalpanam. It's not a historic occurrence, neither it is imaginary. It's just descending into this plane with the Supreme Lord and his paraphernalia. Yes?
I wanted to ask about the spontaneous love and the sense control. So how to understand that they exist together?
Okay, without controlled senses, there's no question of spontaneous love.
But this seems to be a paradox.
No, it completely makes sense. If someone senses, dhira, the slogan says, Vikriditam brajabadu viritam javishnu shradhanvatonu shranaya dattavarnayedya bhakti param bhagavati pratilabdhikamam hridrogam ashu api achinoti api achinoti something, dhira. So hridrogam means heart disease, right? Expressed in uncontrolled senses. So without the senses being relatively controlled, that one is going to express raga bhakti. That means spontaneous love here. Raga marg. Now we're back to Saraswati Thakur's cautions, saying if this is not there at the basis, then they may be telling that it's spontaneous love, but it is mundane, because the senses are not controlled. So they're taking divine things and making them, in his words, vulture food, saying the senses are like vultures. So if the senses are under the control of lust, right, then there's no question of expressing spontaneous love, which means here, raga bhakti, raga marg. So there's vidhi marg. They have to gradually come under control. And then from that position, dhira, undisturbed, no sense disturbance. Then when they hear the divine pastimes of Radharani, Krishna and Braja Gopis, that will awaken spontaneous love, loving sentiments within them. Otherwise, under the influence of Atmendriya, right? Atmendriya priti dari Krishnendriya priti Ichadari premanam. We'll project that our experience of mundane love, will project that as being, will impose that idea on spontaneous love of raga bhaktas, and that's an offense against divinity, to think these pastimes are mundane, like the mundane affairs between men and women. So why is Sukadeva Goswami the speaker of the Bhagavatam? Because it's first certified, ascertained, he has no interest in the mundane love affairs between men and women. His senses are under control. And in that state, hearing about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, spontaneous love, raga bhakti, is awakened in him, and he appreciates that. So it's to show that they're two different things. One is egocentric, the other is theocentric. Atmendriya, to satisfy one's misconceived self. Krishnendriya, to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchite. Devotion, what to speak of raga bhakti, means at its basis, beginning, middle, and end, it's for Krishna. That's the purpose of the why anything is being done. It's how do you say, envisioned from the beginning for the pleasure of Krishna, and by extension his devotees. Not that I'm thinking something about myself and then I realize that and I'm willing to share part of what I achieved with Krishna. That's not Krishna bhakti. Right? Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karma dyanavritam. It has no connection with jnana and karma. Anukulyena krishnanushilanam. It's what's lilanukul or krishnanushilana, favorable to Krishna. Not, oh, I like doing this. I like doing this within Krishna consciousness. And we see the idea that someone whose senses are completely out of control, they will hear the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and that will somehow cure them of their lust, is a God delusion. Shraddhanvato anushanayad. So with faith, anusranaya, hearing from proper authorities. Some person came to Gurudev in Vrindavan talking about manjaris and this, that, and the other thing. And Gurudev was told, first of all, he said he didn't know anything about it. But the man insisted, and it was like English as a second language or anything. And Gurudev's pleading ignorance of all this. And then he's saying, no, Krishna and he said, Krishna and little girls. That's what he said. And Gurudev went, oh, Prabhu. He said, I can understand Krishna having loving pastimes with older girls, but with little girls, this is too much. Please. Then he got up and he said something in relation to the Guru Varga, and he said, that's all they told me. If they tell me anything more, I'll get back to you. Read Chaitanya Charitamritam. They're not just stories. It's the perfect expression of the ultimate reality and how to make your approach. So we hear in the Antya-lila, Pradyumna Misra, he goes to Mahaprabhu to hear Krishna Katha. Right? Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Radha and Krishna combined, Radha Bhava Subalita, Krishna enveloped in the heart and halo of Radharani. Pradyumna Misra, a qualified devotee, asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, can you tell me about Krishna, Krishna Katha? And what does Mahaprabhu say? Krishna Katha Ami Jani Na. Like Gurudev, I don't know. He said, but I know who does. And that is Ramananda. I heard from him. You can hear from him. You have my approval, permission, and recommend. Go hear from Ramananda. This story is it's not just a story, it's pastimes, Leolanda, perfectly constructed. Then what happens? He goes to see Ramananda, and we're told, what is Ramananda doing at that time? He's written a play called the Jagannath Ballabh Natak, a drama. Who was Jagannath Ballabha? Anyway, and there are girls known as Devdashi. Means from their childhood they belong to the deity. And they're meant for the pleasure of the deities. So Ramananda Roy is teaching these two girls how to enact this play he's written. And because they will need to express by gesture and movement and dance ecstatic emotions, he who we should remind everyone at this point is Vishaka Saki of Lalita Vishaka. So Vishaka Saki can say, when this verse comes, here's how you will express it in this way. But they need to be trained and cared for. So what are we told there at that time? Ramananda is massaging their bodies with oil, and they're naked. So these girls, they're naked, he's massaging their bodies with oil, including the private parts of their bodies. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the sannyasi, told Pradyumna Misra, you should hear from the Grihastha, Ramananda, who's massaging the naked bodies of two dancing girls. That's who you should hear Krishna Katha from. So then we could think, well, is this not the very violation of what we just spoke about 15 minutes ago? That's what Pradyumna Misra is thinking. On some level, his mind is disturbed. His heart is disturbed. He's somewhat confused. But the attendant, finally, Ramananda comes and says, how may I serve you? And at this point he says, I just wanted your darshan, now that's been achieved, my dandavats. And he goes. Then Mahaprabhu, he meets Mahaprabhu again, and Mahaprabhu said, did you hear Krishna Katha from Ramananda? And he's saying, no, I just gave my dandavats. But Mahaprabhu can understand that there's some doubt, some apprehension in his mind. And he tells him that Ramananda is a prakrita deho. It appears as though he's embodied, that he's a human being, embodied, but he's not. He doesn't have even a trace amount of exploiting tendency within him. And his body is 100% spiritual. And then to underscore his position further, Mahaprabhu says, as a sannyasi, he said, if I hear the name of a woman, I get a reaction internally. He said, if I see a statue of a woman, or the representation of the form of a woman, it can disturb my mind. But not Ramananda. So you go and hear from him. So both things are dealt with here. That yes, Pradyumna Misra went away, taking him, that if this is a man who is having mundane relationships with women, we are not to hear Krishna Katha from him. That shouldn't be lost upon us. Rightfully, he's saying, if that is the case, then he is right to withdraw, to not hear from someone whose senses are full of lust, right? And the most intense type of lust, which is, sexual. But Mahaprabhu is telling him that's not the case with Ramananda. In fact, he's so far beyond it all. He has a divine form. He doesn't have a mundane body. He doesn't have a trace amount of an exploiting tendency in him, so much so that he can massage these naked girls with his own hand, including their private parts, and there's nothing untoward about it. And that's the person who is taken to be the Ragamarg Diksha Guru of Mahaprabhu. And what is and before someone says, well, I know someone like that. Really? Mahaprabhu says to Pradyumna Misra, Ek Ramananda. There aren't two. So you go and hear from him. So he returns with this kind of recommendation from Mahaprabhu, and Ramananda says, what service can I do for you? And he said, oh, I would like to hear Krishna Katha from you. And Ramananda, what type of Krishna Katha? He said, oh, what you told Mahaprabhu on the banks of the Godavari River, I'd like to hear that. And we're told Ramananda begins in the morning, speaks through the afternoon, they're not eating, into the late afternoon, and to the early evening. So he engages in some intense Krishna Katha for maybe 8-10 hours. So Vikriditam Brajabadu Viricham de Vishnu. So some Sahajiyas, they will say, well, you're saying you first become cured of the disease, then you can take the medicine. Gurudev had a nice response to this. He said, no, the topics of Radha and Krishna and their divine pastimes with Braja Gopis are the ultimate medicine, no doubt. He said, but just like we know Gurudev was fascinated by homeopathic medicine. And he said, just like homeopathic medicine, you have to identify not only what is the medicine, but what is the potency, then the dosage of that potency of that medicine, and he added to that, and your time for healing must have arrived. And my own example, based upon what I've heard from Guru Maharaj and the scriptures, is that sometimes separation is compared to snake bite, having been bitten by cobra, that type of suffering. Now, you can say, well, what is the cure for that? Is cobra venom. Right? The antidote is made from that substance. But it only has that effect when you're suffering from snake bite. Right? So, really, when someone is afflicted, really and truly feeling separation from Krishna, they can't tolerate it anymore. Not out of curiosity or fantasy, but someone heart cannot tolerate being separated from Krishna. To that afflicted heart, this will be the antidote. It'll be the cure for their suffering heart. Tava katamritam, tapta jivanam, kavipir iditam, kalmasha apaham, sravana mangalam, srimadatatam, bhuvi grinanti te, burida jana. Right? That's the method employed by the Braja Gopis. And this should be noted. All suffering is due to separation from Krishna. All suffering. Whether it's the suffering of the conditioned souls or the anguish of separation experienced in the hearts of the Braja Gopis, the cause of all suffering is separation from Krishna. And the cure for separation from Krishna is to hear about him from his devotees, and then to kirtanam, reproduce what we've heard from his devotees. Sravanam kirtanam. Shrotavyas kirtitavyascha smartavyas chestadha bhayam. Sukadev tells this to Parikat Maharaj in the very beginning. So under all circumstances, O king, shrotavyas kirtitavyascha smartavyas chestadha bhayam. Hear about Krishna, glorify Krishna, remember Krishna, then you have no fear. Nothing to worry about. Everything will be all right. Hare Krishna.